Welcome to Cathy Paints on Gen Con TV. I'm Cathy Wappel, and I'm a little brain dead because I just got back from a convention. I'm not going to lie. I had a good time. And now I just put together my wet palette after being at a convention where, well, I had the high hopes of painting. But you know how it is when you're at a convention. You see all these people that you haven't seen for 2 years because your convention didn't happen for 2 years. I didn't get very much painting done, but I did make a fresh wet palette since my other one still had paint on it. And today we're going to continue with painting the Orc Barbarian and the Elf Ranger from Frameworks, the Frameworks stuff from Wizkids. That's the Barbarian. That's the Elf Ranger. And you can see that there are a bunch of different options. This guy had 3 heads, the other guy had 2 heads. I had to choose the moose antlers for our orc. And I was amazed when I actually started priming it that there's these little designs that are carved. They're etched into the antlers. So that's going to be a fun thing to exaggerate and bring out more so that you can see them better as it gets painted. Right now, all the parts that are brown, just kind of that was my primer. My primer was brown. I did a little bit of a dry brush of a lighter color just to bring out some of the details before I started adding in color. Hi, Leaguer Dragon. How are you? What are you up to tonight? At the non-standard time. This is our second 2 for Tuesday stream. I do 2 streams on Tuesdays. I do one at an earlier time at 3 o'clock on my own channel, which is Cathy Wappel, and then Tuesday nights I'm here on Gen Con TV. So we need to get some paint here on the palette. That's a good way to start. I have to get my head back in the game. My stream earlier today was more like just talking about the convention because I'm still tired. I'm tired. My head is reeling with positive vibes from this convention, and seeing all these amazing people. I'm sure you all know how that is. It's the same thing with Gen Con every year. I have a new brush rest. My new brush rest is this silicone thing, and you just put your brushes on it. So I get to use that for the first time. We'll see. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 little slots in it, which seems to be the amount of brushes I use in a day. Hey, Deck Knight, what are you up to tonight besides hanging with us? Ooh. I also have a new little thing in the bottom of my this little thing in here is to get your bristles kind of agitating against these little silicone fingers, little magic fingers to help rinse the paint out of your brush. And I forgot I had that in there because this is a brand new thing, and this is the first time I'm using it. So, hey, Megan, the silicone fingers. Yes, Megan, magic fingers for your brush. Deck Knight says, finally getting over 12 days of being sick. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you're getting better. Sorry you had 12 days of sickness. Gentle hugs. Deck Knight, gentle hugs. Somebody was kind enough to hand me bottles of Phthalo green and Phthalo blue this weekend. So I'm really happy about that. But I need to put some of these aside. I don't need all of them in front of me. I only need one of them. Purple. Blue. Why do I have two clear purples in front of me? I barely use clear purple. I mean, it's a good color. It's just not one that is usually in my palette. I like to make purple using magenta and Speaking of magenta, where is my magenta? Hold on. Hold on. It's my travel bag here. Things are a bit crazy here right now as we unpack from everything. I have primer. I have glaze medium. I have primer. I do not have magenta. That means that I have to shift. I do have another bottle of magenta. It is vital. Magenta is vital to how I paint. I use it in everything. But I don't know where my other bottle of magenta went. It seems to have escaped. Somehow. Leader Dragon says magenta is most important color. It is. And I have to shake this one because this is a brand new one that's been sitting over there for a while. Yeah, I didn't expect to misplace my magenta. There's my orange. No, it's my orange. Huh. I think somebody might have borrowed it. I'm just going to do a peremptory exploratory mission with the needle into the nozzle so we can get magenta out here. There we go. So magenta, phthalo green, we used the orange also in this green because this is the same green we used on the goblin bust, which is also packed away. So I don't get to show that to you because it's packed away still. I am on point today. So I'm doing midtones on the orc's skin. And so for midtones, we want that orange. I'm gonna maybe put some yellow out on the palette too. We want that phthalo green. It's always nice getting a new wet palette all messy. At least for me. For some people don't care for that, but and sometimes it's your impulse to be very thrifty with your paint and only put a tiny, tiny dot of paint out on your palette because you think that's all you're going to need. But when you do that, now there's no room for for exploration. There's no room for experimentation when you've only got that tiny little bit of paint. So you want to at least put enough paint where you can work with it. Maybe mix it in with another color if you feel like it. If you don't have enough on your palette, you'll never feel like it. You'll always feel like you have to be cautious. And painting is not a place to be cautious. Not unless you're, edging your ceiling. Even then, you've got it masked off with tape. So we want to look at this guy's colors and see what we want to, well, what do we want to do for the mid-tone? We know it's going to be green, but it's not just going to be plain old phthalo green because that's too blue-green and that's too intense of a color. So I have my old mixing brush, which I don't care about. I'm going to take some of that green. I'm going to take a little bit of the orange and mix that together. And you can see already, if I hold this up, if I don't drop the whole thing on the floor, you can see already this is a little duller. It's not as intense. It's a little lighter. It's not as intense. We're going to put a little more orange in there. I don't want it to be too orange because then it's not going to be green. It's going to be brown. It's already on the edge. I'm going to add more green then. I'm going to add a little yellow. A little yellow. There we go. We get another nice green going here. So the orange mutes it down a little bit. The yellow brings back the intensity, but not the greenness so much. Ooh, it's the magic fingers. I just put my brush in here and I'm like, ooh. So, Vleer Dragon, are you still in here? Are you playing your role-playing game tonight? I know Vleer Dragon was going to be lurking and maybe playing RPG tonight. Did I say video game or role-playing game? I don't even remember. I'm losing my mind. V says we're not playing. We were listening to Gonzo explain things. Are you done listening to Gonzo explain things? V says I'll be lurking to be playing Sea of Thieves with Carr. Well, have fun with the Sea of Thieves. I know you guys love that game. Brush. What brush do I want? I want this brush, the one I dropped in my lap. Okay, so we have our green. Let's see how this plays out. I don't want to get this green too far up on my highlight, but it's sort of the intermediate color in a few places in between my highlight and my shadow. I do like some of the brown that's showing through, so I kind of want to leave that brown showing through in a few places. So I just want to be aware of where I'm putting it. It doesn't have to be everywhere. And sometimes it's easy to get carried away at any stage of this. Usually I get carried away with my highlights, and I end up in this phase just kind of toning down the highlights in certain places. Like right here, where I feel like my highlights are maybe a little lighter than they needed to be way down in this area, and right here. So I'm just glazing this. It's really translucent, this color that I have. And I'm just glazing it lightly over this lighter surface, kind of just tinting it a little. And that's going to make it a little bit darker. Not by a lot, but just enough. And then we have this whole area here. I feel like there's maybe some muscle texture that's here that I kind of have missed accentuating right there. And then that value is going to taper off as the muscle curves down towards the shoulder. Same on this side. I'm just going to glaze the collarbone a little darker there. So you can see our highlights aren't quite as bold now that we're working this mid-tone into them. Not quite as bold as they were. And that's what I like about adding midtones. And the thing about midtones is they're usually going to be a little bit more saturated than your highlights. Hi, Garamon. Garamon the Grouch. Welcome, welcome. Are you a miniature painter, Garamon? Vleeger Dragon says, Cathy, why do you sometimes wipe your brush on your thumb? I'm wiping my brush on my thumb to do one of a number of things, and right now it's mainly to blot a little bit of excess paint off my brush, which I could do if I reached over here to where my paper towel is. I could do that, but sometimes when you're holding the model like this, it's just easier because this is only inches away rather than having to move my whole arm over here to do it. Also, I can see this better. So when I put a little paint on my thumb, I can see the consistency of the paint. I can see whether it's too thick or too thin. Is it going to be runny? If I put it on the model, is it going to run into the crevices? Or is it going to be too thick in one place? Do I have too much paint on my brush? Checking for moisture. Checking it if I'm trying to do something where I want want the paint to be not dry, but just I want the brush to not have much moisture in it, just to catch the edges of a texture. Then I can run it on my thumb to check that too. And that's right next to my face. And the paper towel is not right next to my face, so I end up using my thumb. And I always thought it was just me, or just me and my husband that did that until I met other miniature painters, and they had the same thing, the paint on their thumbs. I started calling it the thumb palette, and realized it's a thing a lot of people a lot of miniature painters do, and it's not something that anybody ever said, you should do this. It's just something, it's almost like an automatic thing. And it saves time. It's kind of that economy of motion where it's just faster to do this. If I touch my brush to my model and I notice that there's too much paint on it, I can quick do this and then go right back to painting. I know that that's not for everybody. Not everybody does that. Some people do not like to paint themselves, and that's fine for various reasons. And you know, to each their own, right? We all have our own ways of doing things. Again, right here, I'm building up the midtones and shadows as the top of this shoulder shape curves down and becomes, perpendicular to the ground. Because the light's hitting it mainly from above. So this part's going to be darker. And then the underside is going to be darkest of all. And then once we're done with the green, we're almost done with the green. There's not that much left of it. Well, once that's done, we'll start on some leathers. We'll be mixing some browns. We may do some black leather, but mostly, well, actually, I think we'll be doing more black leather on the elf ranger because he's going to be a dark elf, and I guess I feel like dark elves probably wear a little more black. It might end up being also green too. Who knows? I'm I am not one of the people that plans uh, all the colors that they want to use on a model ahead of time. Not usually. Occasionally I am. So I just dip the tip of my brush in my water here and then work that paint out a little bit, and what that does is it's thinning the paint. So I'm not mixing water with all of the paint. I'm just mixing a little bit at the edge to thin it down. So incredible Hulk. I'm just gonna glaze down the side of him. I have those highlights there, and I thought they were gonna be too light, but now that I've put this color on it, it just tames that highlight down. So I still have that value there, but now it's that sort of saturated mid-tone green. Now his skin there looks green instead of that lighter color. And I've just done the same thing on the front as I did on the back muscles. We'll get that mid-tone on the knuckles. He's almost, the skin tone is almost done. It needs a little more something on the, maybe I just need to finish the lips and put a value inside of his mouth. I haven't really done that at all. I also haven't done anything with the midtones on this shoulder at all. I just realized, or this whole arm. So probably I should do that. I did the one shoulder. I totally skipped this one. Cranston snored. Hi. Welcome in. The eyes painted on your visor freaked me out for a second. That does happen a little. How are you tonight? I forget they're there sometimes. I thought it would be more interesting for people to look at eyes on my visor instead of just the boring black top of the visor when I started streaming. I keep talking about getting stickers made so people can put them on their visors. You know, those other people that use visors like me, I know I'm not the only one. All right. Are we I need to do more on this arm, I can tell. Not much though. Just that little bit of green seems to have toned down whatever was going on the top of this arm. At some point, we'll be painting the axe too, but we're a little ways off from that. We'll get the leathers going as soon as the skin is done. I feel like I completely forgot to paint the back of these fingers. There's something about that I don't have any white on my palette. I just realized that. I guess we don't need it. Guess we don't need white. No, I need white. I need to put white on the palette. V says someday we will get a sticker with Cathy's visor eyes. Yes. Someday we will make that happen. So I put the white out here and I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, why? Why do why did I feel like I needed that out here right now? I'm not doing any highlights. You know, sometimes you just get this feeling you need a little titanium white. And you better just do it. You know, you just put it on the palette. That titanium white is going to sit there, and I'm going to be using it tomorrow, the next day. It'll get used. You know what I feel like I need to do? Speaking of now, I'm going to use this. I don't know what my highlight was. I just want to put a little bit of this highlight color right here. Like there's this little space in between these muscles where there's this flat bit of skin right there. I'm going to glaze my mid-tone up around it. So I like these little bits of the primer color that are peeking through the flesh tone here and there. I like that. It works. It works with everything. I'm also going to take a little bit of magenta with a little green here. I just mixed a little magenta and green together. And I'm going to just put a really thin glaze over his elbow and his knuckles. We're going to go through knuckles this way too. It's sort of this purpley kind of color. Just going to make his knuckles feel like there's a blood supply going to them. Make it a little more alive. Maybe I needed a brighter mid-tone color. No, it's a nice little tint. We'll go over it again. You know, we'll just go straight magenta. We'll go over it again with a little straight magenta. We're just making it a little more rosy here. You see, like there's blood flowing there underneath the skin. With the green, it was just a little too dark. And just the magenta itself, it's so translucent that it's going to let the green show underneath it. And it's going to let the value, you know, that light highlight show underneath it as well. What about your nose? Do you want a little on your nose? Your rosy cheeks? Some rosy cheeks? Sure. We need to get that dark color down into his mouth too, because we want that dark color in there, that contrast. Kate Calpra, welcome. Welcome. Says, hi, first time catching you paint. Just heard about Gen Con and we're hoping to attend this year. Really? I enjoy it every year. My first year was amazing. It's huge. It's huge and it's exciting and you meet lots of people and there's so much to do. So much to do. Cranston says Gen Con is a great con. Yes, yes it is. Kate says I only heard about it from one of my grad students, instantly intrigued. Oh, it's all gaming of all kinds. You've got You've got tabletop war games, you've got tabletop role-playing games, you have board games happening, you have card games. There's so many game companies that release new games at Gen Con that people haven't had an opportunity to play, and the first time they get to play them is when these companies bring them and they do demonstrations. They run people through these different games so they get an idea of how it plays. So you can see, do you like the game or not before you buy it. Yes, the board game library, Cranston says yes. There's LARPs with foam weapon battles. I've never LARPed. I've done role playing games since I was 10, but I've never LARPed. I don't know how it happened that I've lived this long and never LARPed. I don't understand that. And there's a video game room. Yes, there's so much. There's True Dungeon, which is a thing where you actually, well, that's not really a LARP, but it's like you're role playing your character through this dungeon, and they set up these rooms that have puzzles in them that you have to solve and stuff. It's kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons escape room kind of a thing. And there's a lot of people cosplaying, so they're dressing up as their favorite characters from uh, anime, comics, film, books, all kinds of stuff. What was I just doing? Did I actually? Oh, we're mixing a dark color to put in his mouth. I just got back from another convention. That was this weekend. That was a lot of fun too, and my brain is reeling, and it was exciting, and we hadn't been able to have this convention for a couple years. We were all very excited to get together finally, and this one was more focused on tabletop war games and miniature painting, because miniatures are a big part of tabletop war games, in addition to being a big part of what a lot of people like to do for their in-person role-playing games. Should, we ever play in-person role-playing games again? So I just made this dark color by mixing phthalo green, magenta, and orange together. These three colors made this nice dark color, and this is the color I'm going to use inside of his mouth. Maybe I'll have to do lips on this guy. I don't know. I definitely need to do some dots for the teeth. Like, the teeth look like they were once upon a time sculpted in really well, but they're very tiny. They're very tiny. So they kind of disappear. I'm gonna add a little more of this dark color up here where his eyes are. We're not gonna bother painting the eyes because they really basically look like little slits. I'm gonna do a little dark lining around where the helmet meets the skin too. You know what? We'll take this dark lining all the way around the fluffy furry part of his hat. Because our orc barbarian likes fluffy furry things. So we've got the inside of his mouth done. We're just going to spend some time using this color, as long as it's on the palette, to dark line around the back of the helmet where it goes up against the skin. And that's going to kind of delineate the the helmet from the skin a little bit. And it'll show us that we do need some shadow colors down in here. Kate wants to know, how long have you been painting? How long have I been painting tonight? How long have I been painting forever? I started painting really in 2002, I think. 2001, 2002. Yeah. I had painted a few small figures years before that, but nothing really serious. But I got really serious about the miniature painting, yeah, about 20 years ago. It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but yeah, it's been that long. Kate says you have such a steady hand for these minis. Mine look like they did color runs. One of the things you'll notice me doing is I always have my hands touching. They're either touching each other or they're both resting on the table or both. Because when you do that, it just makes them steadier. I learned that from a potter, actually, because I asked him how he got his pots to not all cave in always, because that was my problem the few times that I tried turning pots. And he said he always kept his hands like this together, no matter where on the pot he was going with his fingers. He always had his hands together and it steadied it. So I thought, well, this is what I should be doing. And so I always am resting my finger on my thumb, or I have, I have a finger on the model. Sometimes I have my finger on another finger. It really helps to steady the hands. Some people say I always do this, but then it's hard to get to some places. But, any variation on that. Okay, this dark color, what am I doing with it? I want to hit a few areas more that I feel like would have the darker color. Like, how about underneath his pectoral muscles? Maybe there's a little bit more of a dark there, darker than the rest of it. So we'll just go in and beef up a little contrast. Like, just like in his armpit area. We'll throw a little bit in there. It seems like a good time to throw a little extra dark in. And then all this area where the skin meets his belt. Anytime one surface is meeting another surface, like the skin and the belt, or the belt and his kilt, I guess that's what we'll call it. You want it to be a little darker. You want it to kind of define those areas. Because on a model like this, part of what you're doing isn't painting true to life. It's creating an illusion. You're creating an illusion that the light is hitting this model to scale. Because light catches and reflects differently on small things. So when you exaggerate it like this, the small things start to, you get that optical illusion that they're a little bigger or a little more life size. That's the idea. So you're always exaggerating the contrast and the play of light and shadow and the colors. And you drop the brush like that. magically nothing happened there. I don't have very much paint on my brush, so when that does happen, and it will happen, uh, there's not a whole lot that can go wrong when there's not that much paint on your brush. Now, if you drop it on the palette and it lands in your paint, well, that's a whole different story. Then you're allowed to cry and make loud sounds when that happens. And that can be frustrating. And that happens to everybody. Oh, let's look at this guy. We need a little more dark line around the edge of this fur. A little bit of a dark shadow on the underside of his arm right here. Maybe right there. Just exaggerating a few shadows now. I just don't want to forget the hands. I have this propensity for forgetting to do things with the hands. So trying to remember that I need to paint dark lines here where the hands meet the axe handle haft thing. I suppose I could also do a little dark lining. See, there's this leather. See, there's these little fur edges on this cuff, and then there's this leather. I guess the whole bracer is maybe lined with sheepskin. So I could do this on the inside here too. The thing with a color like this is it's already on the model. So we can put it here and it'll look natural. My husband and I always say, if a color goes somewhere, it must go everywhere. Which is a good rule of thumb for, you want the colors on your model to all be harmonious, like they're working together. So if I have red somewhere on the model, then I need to have red somewhere else on the model. I don't have red on this model yet at all. I might put red on it, but so far the only colors I've used on it are the brownish primer and green, orange, and yellow, and white. I really need to get my brush down in this place. I'm gonna get some shadows down in there. So the bracer should now be showing up a little bit better. It's really easier to see what's going on with it, and with the little furry cuffs. Somehow I need to somehow I need to get in here and paint this part of these swords that are right here. So maybe I should just do a dark color on that right now while I've got dark colors going. Again, this was the orange, the green, and the magenta making this dark color. And you wouldn't think that's, orange and green and magenta, that they make a really dark value. But they do. I don't usually use black on my palette. Maliv Flo Shinobi. Hey. Hey, Maliv. Maliv says, so what the heck? I found a Catheee over here now. She's everywhere. You can't escape. Hey, Megan. How is everybody tonight? I'm actually painting in this stream. My other painting stream was full of distraction. This painting stream, I'm actually painting. And now I feel like I just want to stab a bunch of dark color down into the recesses here, because I can't see what I'm doing at that angle. I know it's swords, and I can see that once it dries, I'll be building up that value by adding more layers of this color. But possibly it might be time for me to get out the red. Or the purple. Ooh. Ooh. I think purple. Because orange, we have got orange out already, and the orange and the purple, I happen to know, make a really nice, rich, warm brown color. And we're doing leathers, so I feel like rich, warm brown is kind of a way to go. I'm a little excited. This is a little more green than my previous. My previous mix had a little more magenta. We'll just throw some more magenta in here, because we can do that. Definitely going to get some of that purple orange action going. Oh, this is a sword hilt. This is going to be gold. Well, parts of it will be. Parts of that will be gold. Parts of it will be cloth. What's that bundle of swords? What do we have going on this guy's belt? Got some interesting stuff happening. He's got a spore on here. Sort of. Sort of spore on. Pouch. We'll do a little bit of shadow there. Across the top edge of that pouch. A little shadow there. Then he has this gold. He's got like a rodeo belt on. He's got this great big belt buckle here. And then he's got this thing that's in a bezel, and you're like, should it be a gem? But it's a dwarf. A dwarf. It's not a dwarf. It's a barbarian. And he's not going to have a giant gem sitting in the middle of a belt buckle. So it's just metal. It's just going to be metal. These models, these frameworks models, are made so that like he has bits on the frame on his sprue that there's a cup I think on his sprue, and there are some other odds and ends that you could glue to the to his waist, in addition to this little rack of swords here. That's just a bit that I glued onto the back of his belt. So there are a lot of options. He had one option where he had a sword and an axe, so it wasn't a two-handed weapon. He had a weapon in each hand. Then he had that other head. But whoever would use the other head when you can use the helmet with the antlers, with the moose antlers, right? You got to have the moose antlers. I think now is the time. Now is the time to put the purple out here on the palette. So we've got the clear purple. I'm going to give that a good shake. I did pick up, excuse me, I did pick up a vortex mixer, which is a little mixer that sort of vibrates your paint like this, and it's supposed to mix it up really well. But I haven't figured out where I want to plug it in. It's where it's going to be handy. Because if I'm going to use it, it needs to be within arm's reach. So I got to give this purple a good shake, because it's been a while since I've used it. I don't use purple all the time in my palette. And I'll show you what I mean with this brown that purple and orange make here. A little purple. Need some orange. It's a nice brown. It's a real light brown. Imagine this for leathers. I want to use that for leathers. But then I also want to go darker, which means I'm using more purple and less orange. So now we have another darker purple here. And you could mix a little magenta in with that too to spice it up. Those will be nice leathers. And I think our green magenta orange combo will be a nice dark leather, like for this guy's stuff. And then it can be, in some areas it could go a little greener, in other areas it could go a little more magenta. Thank you, Maliv. they've been a lot of fun to paint. These are the frameworks models from Wizkids. They're doing this whole line of D&D stuff, and it's on sprues. Not like the pre-built, pre-primed ones. It's different than that. I also have this other one that I want to do that's out of reach at the moment. But it's Hill Giant. It's the Frameworks Hill Giant. And that's going to be a lot of fun too. Now, it says that's cool. I've not seen those in the wild. Yeah, they go together really easy. The mold lines are really easy to clean. There's not very many. It's kind of nice that way. You can use plastic glue to assemble them. They are the right kind of plastic for that. There are a few places, I mean, like any model that was digitally sculpted, there are a few places where the details were maybe a little more ambitious with the sculpting than they translate to when you shrink it down to this size. But it's not, I mean, but you can see there's still quite a bit of detail. Quite a lot of detail. Hey, Diomedes Industries. I didn't see you sneak in. How are you, Dio? Missed you earlier. I missed all my people. I was gone for the weekend. I saw a bunch of people, but I missed all the people I didn't see. What do I do for the axe blade? You know what? Let's leave that for later. We're just gonna do leathers. We're just gonna do some leathers. What do we want to what color do we want as boots? I'm feeling like maybe the dark leather would be good. That darker color with that's more purple. Just throw that on there. I'm gonna take my brush. I rinsed it off. There's no paint on it, just a little bit of water. Not much. It's just damp, not wet. And so we took some of that paint off. We left some of it down in the crevices. We'll leave some room to get those shadows in there and get those midtones. I feel like this is my midtone color, so I'm starting out with my midtone color. I'm letting a few of the lights kind of show through. It won't be my highlight, but this seems like a good start, this color. Maybe I'll do this on the antlers too. I feel like the antlers need this as well. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. Or I really want to get this sort of scroll work in here. I want to keep that there, but I kind of want the scroll work to be lighter. I'm just going to go in for now with the dark. We'll figure it out later. If you don't know what you want to do with the model, just do something. You can always paint over it later. I'm just blocking in, it's kind of a dark brown right now. Later we'll figure out what else we want to do with it. We might paint over it. We might not. I mean, actually we will, because this is a mid-tone, which means that there's going to be highlights, there's going to be shadows. All the little swirly parts I want to be a light color, which means I have to go in somehow with white or another light color and get that down in those crevices. If I had been smart when I initially did this, which I can still do, but if I had thought of this like 5 minutes ago, I would have said, let's just paint the white in there and then dry brush a little. But you know what? Maybe this is the best way. I'm going to take a little bit of glaze medium. Do I have any? Only in here. Only the stuff that I took with me to the convention. Somehow the magenta that I took to the convention with me disappeared. It disappeared. I'm not sure what I did with it. I'm just going to put a little dot of this glaze medium here. I just want to thin it down a little. I want it to run into those little scroll work crevices on his antlers. At least that's my hope. I hope it works. I don't know. Hey, Dakaflaka. How are you? Good to see you again. Alright, so I put a little glaze medium in my white. I just wanted to get into these little crevices. Fill those up. And then we'll paint the dark areas over again. This seems to be working. Seems to be working. Then we'll just be a little more careful adding the dark around these. And that is where you want your damp brush, but not wet. Here is where you want the wet brush. To get down into these little crevices. All right. And I want to make sure to blot away excess white that I don't want. Wow. Huh. It seems to have worked better than I thought it would. I think I got rid of a little bit of stuff that I wanted to be in the. Maybe that just got a little mushy here. Anyways, we're just gonna let that dry, and since we have the white out here, I'm gonna look at this guy's hair. This is why it's nice to have more than one model at a time on your desk, so that you can put one down, pick up another one, and start working on that while the first one is drying. Now, what color should we make his cloak? Should the cloak be that dark greeny purple? I think maybe the cloak should be that dark greeny purpley color. Well, let's do his hair first. Do his hair first, then we'll find the other stuff out. Daka is on lunch break. Like the guy's helmet. It's the moon. The moon. It's the moose antlers. Yeah. There's two heads. There's two options for that model, and I was like, it has to be the moose antlers. So we started calling that one Bullwinkle, and the small one was Rocky. This is Rocky. The other guy's Bullwinkle. What do we want to do for his hair? Do we want to just start out with I feel like I want to just start out with a little, not quite dry brush, a damp brush, if you will, on his hair. The hair looks really good on these. And usually that's not an easy thing to do with digitally sculpted models. It seems like a lot of sculptors in digital have a difficult time with hair, but the hair on these looks good. So I'm just taking the edge of the bristles, not the point, and kind of dragging it across this texture. I think I even thought that the hair was rougher on this, but it's really fine. The texture of it. Surprising. I hadn't had a chance to look that closely at this at the hair on this model. The other guy didn't really have much hair. I mean, he has a helmet on. I wonder how the hill giant is going to be. I'm looking forward to that one. That's a big model. The main body of it, I mean, the body and legs of the hill giant is like the size from the heel of my hand to my finger. No, just my palm. It's big. It's big. Daka has to get back to work. All right. Thanks for stopping in for a little bit. I appreciate it. This is an elf, but I am kind of wondering where his elfy ear is. The other one's in his hair. The one on this side looks not really elfy. Again, you'll see me going back to my thumb palette so that I can blot a little excess paint off before going back and doing the dry brushing. My poor brush tells me it hates me because I'm letting all this white up into the top of the bristles by the ferrule, by the metal part of the brush. And that's, brushes don't like that. That tends to ruin them. But sometimes you just can't help it. I don't know what the deal is with his ear. It just looks like a human ear to me. It doesn't look like an elf ear. And he's gonna have these white elfy eyebrows. Alright, eyebrows. Dot, 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 dot. I'm just doing a bunch of little dots for the eyebrows. I don't want to try making a whole line. I'm just dabbing this with the tip of the brush. That's not too bad. Oh, where am I? I don't know where my range of focus is here. It's not there. Yeah. So now he's got some white hair. I'm going to make some of his hair more white. I'm going to give my bristles a good rinsing though, just to get some of that white out of there. So I'm going to glaze a little bit of white into some areas, like on the top of his head. On the top of his head, it's not going to look like there's a whole lot of texture. It's just going to be the white. So I'm going to go in all the way on this part. That's going to create some depth too between this part and that part. And it's a thin, watered down white, which means you're still going to have a little bit of the light and dark showing through that value. Now I could go over it a little bit again if I wanted to. and build that opacity up on the top. But we'd wait till it's dry because otherwise we'd just be pushing paint around, wet paint, and with nothing really happening. I want to do kind of the tips of his hair too, to get that all just white. I think our moose antlers might be dry. All of a sudden, I feel like it's a cooking show. Our moose antlers might be done. Moose antlers. Let's take them out of the oven and check. Just building up a little more white here. His skin also stands out a little more, and the sort of blue purpleness of it is standing out a little more now that the hair is kind of white. Well, I'm happy with that. Nazi, hello Nazi, welcome in. Thank you very much. I think we'll... Ooh, do we wait a little bit longer on this? I feel like we wait a little bit. Well, I can handle this guy, but we just won't work on the antlers for a while. We'll just work on the boots and his trousers. Gosh, what color should his trousers? There's one tiny glimpse of a trouser, and I feel like it should be red, but I feel like also that would be wrong. But what if it's purple and magenta? And white. With a little bit of orange. It'll just be this pink color. Lovely. Lovely pink trouser. It's the only place you see it is right there, too. Unless I throw it on the handle of this thing. Why not? Right? There's two of them. Maybe it's a set and they both have the same pink-ish handle. Maybe we could do a little wash of purple over that later, after that dries. I guess one of these things is wood. It's just wood. I don't know. We're gonna go back to his boots. Do a little bit more on the boots. I wonder if they just did the same boot on both sides. You know, like copy paste. When you're sculpting digitally, there's a lot of, you know, copying and pasting of things you can do to make it easier and quicker. So I feel like maybe they just used the same boot and just did a copy paste. Not that there's anything really wrong with that until you can tell. But that could just be me being overly picky. But so far so good. Our boots look like boots. Our midtones look like midtones. Maybe we shade this with purple. Maybe it's a purple green. We used purple orange for the midtone. We can use purple green for the shadows, right? I like to use colors to make a dark value rather than going to black, because I feel like black is just such a it's kind of a dead color. It just makes things look dead flat. So anytime you're mixing colors together to get a dark, like the green, orange, magenta to get this dark color, it just it has a bit more vibrancy. There's more intensity there. So let's see. We got purple. Some purple. Get some green. Mix those together. See what we got. Oh, that is a nice color. Well, look at this nice color. It's like this dark. I don't even know, but I like it. I feel like I've discovered a new color for my palette. It's like the Crayola crayon midnight blue color, sort of, which was always my favorite color as a kid. If you asked me what my favorite crayon color was, I would say midnight blue. That's kind of what this is. And I'm going to take a little bit of orange and a little bit of this midnight blue. No, that's not. No, that's not good. I was just going to see if I could knock down the intensity of it a little bit. But I don't know. I don't want to screw with it. I like it. It's pretty. There's not even magenta in it. It's just purple and phthalo green. Oh, this does make a good shadow for the leather, though. I definitely need to remember this palette for next week. Because we'll be doing more on these guys next week. Now we're getting into the leathers. The skin was the big challenge. The leathers will be fun. Well, the skin was fun too. I had a lot of fun with the skin. This is a bit more forgiving. Skin, you wanted to make it look like, you know, it's alive, it's skin. Brown leathers, you can kind of fudge a little bit. Is this? I just realized that this hanging off the front of him is, it's not fur, it's mail. It's chain mail coming off the front of him. So he does have a little bit of chainmail. He's got this studded leather, but yeah, I didn't see that was chainmail until just now. So we've got some lights and darks on his boots. I'm just going to go in and hit those again. Get into the shadow underneath the fuzzy boots, the fuzzy tops of the boots. I'm just going to go in and put some dark color in this kind of little area that's not really anything. But they had to make that, had to put that in there in between his legs. I don't know why. I don't know why they do that. Honestly. Something to do with the casting process, I suppose. There's a lot of models that do that. I don't know why. They just do. And I'm just going to put some of this value in some of these, you know, wrinkles on his leather right here. I'm just going to add that. Well, I can stab some of this color in here too. Earlier I put that green, orange, magenta in there, but now I'll put that green, purple. Because Because I just want that to be a dark color, because you can hardly see anything that's underneath there anyways. So it doesn't really matter too much how that's painted in there. Man, I have that song, Godzilla. Oh no, there goes Tokyo, go go Godzilla. It's in my head. I don't know why. I don't know why. So we're gonna build up some darks again on the boots, the shadows on the boots. It'll be darker on the inside of the legs, because there's less light getting in there. Anything you paint on something like this, the inside of the legs are usually going to be darker. Rathmore! How are you, Rathmore? He has moose antlers. I'm just blocking in a little bit of shadows on some boots. We're getting into painting some leather. And then tomorrow on my stream, because I do this every Tuesday night, but also I have my own stream where I paint in the afternoons during the week. I'll be working on what's that Raging Heroes model. This one. I can't remember what she's called, but this is a 3D printed model. And I started painting that the week before Adepticon. So she is a fun model. And that's what I'll be working on tomorrow. Rathmore says sipping the ginger tea before Betty Bye time. Oh, nice. I had the ginger tea earlier, now I have Earl Grey. As long as we have a dark color, let's just put this. Now, I don't know if the axe is supposed to be metallic. I mean, is it supposed to be metal? Is it supposed to be stone? I have no idea. No idea. Kind of feel like stone just because of how it's sculpted. But it could be either. I guess it's my model. I can do whatever I want with it. So it's going to be metal. I'm not going to use metallic paints on it, but it's going to be metal. There's some interesting little strange shapes on this axe head. Yeah, that song is firmly stuck in my brain. Well, there's worse things to be stuck in your head. Totally metal. Totally metal. Metal but not metal. I have to figure out where I want to throw lights and darks on this. I'm going to just block in a little bit of lights and darks, reflections on metal. It's going to look weird. It's going to look weird until it suddenly doesn't look weird. That's how it is when you paint metal like this. It will look weird until it doesn't. The underside, how are we going to do that? The opposite. We're faking it. We're faking this. We don't know what, the play of lights and darks on reflected surface. It's all about creating an optical illusion again. But that's where it starts. It always looks weird. Hey, K-Sauce. Didn't see you sneak in. Hey, K-Sauce, how you doing? Rathmore says, Cathy, did you pick up any new ideas or techniques over the weekend? Rathmore? I picked up my brushes and then I put them down. Then I picked up my model and then I saw somebody I knew. So I put it down. And then that's pretty much all I did all weekend. Just repeat. And then I lost my magenta. So yeah. Yeah, that's my weekend. But it was amazing. I was social and now I'm ready to cocoon up. You know how it is when you're social for 5 days and then you just want to wrap up in some blankets and eat cookies. That's where I'm at. But I did just discover that clear purple and phthalo green make an amazing color. You have to try this color. It's unbelievable. And now I just made it into gray by adding white. Look, I just made it into gray by adding white, which is perfect for what I'm about to do. Rathmore says, when I did a lot of cons for work, that was me. Yeah, fortunately I had an extra bottle of magenta here. I don't know what happened to I have all my other colors. Pretty sure I didn't lend it out. Alright, so this is just that brown primer color. We're going to make it a little more gray. We're also going to put some darks in there too. We haven't got any darks in there. So we're going to throw some gray in here. So we get our, not really white. We used white, but white can sometimes be a little less opaque. So our white's looking a little not super white, so we'll have to make it more white. We'll have to beef that up a little bit. And our gray, we can just overlap a little bit the edges of that white too, because the gray is also a little translucent. I definitely have to reapply that white. It's not terribly white. It's almost like a warm gray instead of white. Okay, so now we'll go in. We'll get those whites back up, and then we have to get some darks in there. Rathmore says someone snagged it to steal your painting power. Ah, they were thwarted. I have more. I'm sure somebody just borrowed it and then just forgot to give it back. There's a whole rack of Reaper paint, that's there at the convention. So if somebody borrowed it and left it on their table, they probably just put it back in the rack of Reaper paint. Okay, so we'll throw some more white in there. Make our white more white. Again. We can spread our white out into that gray too. I get a little moisture on my brush, so I can do that. Spread that white out into the gray. Forget what I'm doing. Put my brush in the gray paint. This is how I go. This is how I roll. There, that's a nice bright white. There's this scar, the scratch carved into sculpted into the axe right there. I need to repaint that too. I have to be careful not to put my finger on the antlers because I keep wanting to do that, and then they're only attached by these tiny little things, and it would be bad if they broke. But, well, I would be sad anyways if they broke. I feel like he just wouldn't be the same little guy. He wouldn't be the same monster without his moose antlers. Alright, so we have way more white. Ooh, I almost forgot to do this surface completely. Probably just need a straight up bunch of white right there. Then I need some right here that's reflecting from that surface onto this surface. This looks really rough right now. But that's how non-metallic metal is. This is what they call this technique, where you're using not metal paint to paint a surface so that it looks like metallic paint. So it looks like it's metal. That's what I'm trying to say. Like what happens in actual paintings. So, well, there's a lot of back and forth in this technique, creating this optical illusion. There's a lot of back and forth. And by that I mean there's a lot of going from white to gray to your darkest colors, back to white, adding a little more gray. Until all of a sudden, it doesn't look crappy. Suddenly it looks like maybe there's a metal blade there. Maybe I got a little carried away on the underside here. Well, we have this gray right here, so we can kind of tone that down a little bit. See how easy that is? And I haven't even put the darkest color in yet. Get them moist. And then drink some water. Oh my goodness, my time is up. That is my time. My time is over. Thank you, everybody. for tuning in to Cathy Paints on Gen Con TV. I will be here next Tuesday working on these guys again. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all the people keeping me company in the chat. And I will see you next